Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 2 of Norway Chess 2018 held in the city of Stavanger. These were the pairings of round 2 and we saw 4 draws. Ding and Vache Lagrave played a draw, so did Caruana and Mamedyarov, so Caruana is on the scoreboard after his false start, losing his first game. Aronyan and So played a draw, and so did Nakamura and Anand. We're going to look at a game between Karjakin and Carlsen. They played a match in 2016 for the world title, and their clashes are always very interesting. Let's get into it. This is Sergei Karjakin during the game, thinking hard, and this is Magnus Carlsen. He also looks like he is suffering a bit. Let's see what happened. Karjakin was white and he played e4 like he always does. e5 was Carlsen's reply. Knight f3. Knight c6, and Karjakin plays the Ruy Lopez, bishop b5. a6, bishop back, knight f6, Karjakin castled, and now bishop e7 is the move that Carlsen mostly plays against Karjakin in this variation. Karjakin said afterwards, "I did not expect Carlsen to play something differently, as normally in our games Carlsen goes for bishop e7 to go for some martial lines. But he did not go for bishop e7 in this game, he played bishop c5, the Arkhangelsk variation. c3 from Karjakin, Carlsen castled, d4, bishop back to a7. Karjakin mentioned afterwards that this line was played in Topalov against Wojtaszek in a recent game in Shamkir only a few months ago, which black won. And he said that's maybe why Carlsen went for this variation, because of that game. Karjakin said here I could have played a sharp line with bishop g5, but it's not easy to do that if you're not prepared. Karjakin had not prepared the bishop c5 line, the Arkhangelsk variation, so he did not want to go for a sharp line. He went for a quieter line with d takes e5. Karjakin said white is playing for a small advantage in the endgame. I always thought this was better for white, but I may have to change my opinion after this game. Let's see what Carlsen had prepared. He took on e4, that is a theoretical variation, then queen d5 and knight c5, saving that knight. Attacking the bishop on a4, the bishop dropped back to c2 and knight e7. Hitting the queen goes back, and d5 to free up his play. Karjakin took en passant, queen takes, and now we get this endgame that Karjakin was talking about. The queens were swapped. As Karjakin said, this looks better for white, simply because black has a isolated pawn. Rook d1 from Karjakin, attacking that isolated pawn immediately, and here bishop g4. Bishop f5 was played in a game between Karjakin with white and Alexander Onyshuk, the US Grandmaster. And Karjakin of course remembered that game, and also that he got a very nice position from it, even though the game ended in a draw later. But Carlsen went one square further with his bishop to g4. And Karjakin said afterwards that he first did not really understand this move. Karjakin said he has to take the pawn if he does something differently. If he doesn't take on d6 but plays, for example, as he showed, bishop e3, then black can take on f3, g takes, d5, and Karjakin said this is followed by knight e6, and black is doing well, and I have a spoiled pawn structure. This structure on the king side is not very nice. So Karjakin felt he had to take the pawn. Rook takes d6. White has won a pawn. Where's the compensation? Now here comes a very surprising move. Karjakin said after the game that he saw that rook a d8 or rook f d8 does not work, and that bishop takes f3 does not work either. He did not know what Carlsen's idea was. Unfortunately, Karjakin did not give the variations why he thought these moves did not work, but Carlsen came up with bishop f5. What a move! Carlsen said afterwards that it was a computer move, of course, giving up a pawn and a tempo just for the file to open up and get compensation, as Carlsen called it. He wanted this file to open up, and that would give him his compensation for the pawn he sacrificed and for the tempo he lost by playing bishop g4 first and only then back to f5. His team had cooked this up and told Carlsen about it, and it gives him great compensation for the pawn and an easy game. Quite interesting to see how preparation goes at the highest level in chess. Even maneuvers like this are thought up. Of course, it's the engine who gives bishop f5 as the first move here, and then Carlsen's team started to analyze that move and they told their boss about it, and he played it in this game. Well, what is the point? Well, the first point is that your bishop on c2 is attacked. And let's play the most obvious move, just take that bishop on f5. Well, then black indeed gets very nice play. He takes back with the knight, attacking the rook. If the rook drops back to d1, there is rook a d8. Just look at the difference in activity, in piece activity. All black's pieces are very active, well, apart from the rook on f8, but look at the queen side. Everything is still at home. Knight d3 will be coming for black, and then black will be attacking that f2 pawn with two pieces. This is actually better for black, even though he's a pawn down. So back, bishop f5, taking on f5 is not good. Karjakin played the best move. He played knight a3, protecting the bishop on c2 that way. And Karjakin gave a variation. He saw that bishop takes c2 now does not work for black. Knight takes c2, and then knight e4. Again, attacking that f2 pawn with two pieces. But there is rook d7, saving the rook and counter-attacking this knight. Rook a d8, rook takes e7, rook d1 check, and then white can just interpose one of the knights. White is winning here. This is a variation that Sergei Karjakin showed in the analysis. So back to the game. Knight a3 was played. Karjakin then saw, after he saw that bishop takes c2 does not work, he saw that knight e4 would be coming, and Carlsen indeed played it. And it's again a double attack on d6 and f2. Karjakin said about this position, my knight on a3 is misplaced, and my rook on d6 is also somewhat misplaced. If I have time to bring my knight to d4, to this square, then I'm better, but I just don't have the time. After knight e4, the move from the game, Karjakin took that knight, bishop took back, and Karjakin said there are many ways to play, but I did not see any advantage for white in any of the variations. He played this rook back to d1, knight f5, knight c4, putting that knight on a better square, rook fe8, bishop e3, and now we get a lot of pieces chopped off the board, and black will win his pawn back. Carlsen took on e3, knight takes, f takes, bishop takes f3, g takes, and black wins his pawn back. And we suddenly have a rook endgame with 5 pawns on each side, and this is a draw. Rook d7 was played by Karjakin, attacking the pawn on b7. Karjakin said afterwards that b5 is an option here, but he said maybe Carlsen did not like the reply a4. So after rook d7, Carlsen played rook b8, and Karjakin said I could have played king f2, Then the rook goes back to e6. But instead of king f2, he decided on rook a d1, activating that rook. Carlsen brings his king closer to the center. King f2 attacking the rook. Rook back to e7. Rook d8 check. And Karjakin gave one more variation. Here rook takes d8 is possible. Rook takes. Rook e8 only move. And Karjakin said maybe Carlsen did not want to go into the king and pawn endgame, even though that's also a draw. So instead of rook takes d8, Carlsen played rook e8, interposing the rook. Pair of rooks was swapped. The other rook comes to the 7th rank, but there's no winning chances for white. King attacks the rook, rook steps aside, and now b5. Rook c6 attacking the a-pawn, rook a8 defending, c4, king d7 hitting the rook, c takes b5, a takes, and rook b6. Carlsen took on a2, Karjakin took on b5. The players were playing on no draw can be agreed before move 40. I believe the rule is rook a4, king g3, rook d4, Karjakin gave a check, king e6, you have to keep the f-pawn protected, another check, king f5, another check, king went back, rook b6 check, king up again, move repetition, and this is move 40, and after rook b5 check, king e6, and the game was agreed to a draw. Not a very exciting game, but a very exciting novelty. Bishop g4, and then giving away a pawn and losing a tempo by playing bishop f5 to get compensation. Opening preparation at the highest level. Quite fascinating. So we had a draw fest in round 2. All 5 games were drawn. That leads to the following standings, which is very easy to take in. Only one game decided so far. Carlsen beat Caruana in the first round, so he's leading with 1.5. All the other games were drawn, which means everybody has 1 point. I put them there in alphabetical order, and Caruana has half a point. Round 3 will be played on Wednesday the 30th of May, and we'll see Anand versus Ding. So Nakamura, the US clash. Carlsen against Aranyan, Mamedyarov Karjakin, and Vache Lagrave against Caruana. I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed Carlsen's baffling opening novelty. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. Please leave a comment. I will read them all and will reply to them. You also may want to check out my Chess to Progress channel. The link is in the description box. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.